Canyon, there's a world in which the Malians could be quite tricky to deal with, tricky to oppress. Well, let's see if VortiX can impress and stick his bro in the lower bracket in revenge for round 1.
There it is. We got VortiX on the southeastern side, LucifroN in the northwest, and as always, Molly wanting to get that gold income started, pit mine being dropped, and 2 scout opening for Molly. Not the second scout invested for... Oh, actually, is that a second scout being invested into by LucifroN?
It is. It's an interesting choice here, but if you feel like you can't get on the deer, you need as many sheep as you can get, right? You could try farm transitions, but it's still gonna you lose you something in the meantime. And when you look at where his deer located, it makes sense, right? That he hasn't got a safe retracted spawn he can just shift villages onto. I think what we've got here is potentially kind of an all-in, maybe 10-15 minute approach to the English.
Yeah, and that's one of those that if you go out, take the deer, that means you're not having to spend those wood on the farms. You can use that wood for better tempo with more longbows, drop a barracks down a little earlier, support some spears to protect up those longbows from the scouts and from the sofa that are sure to be coming out from VortiX.
Well, I think VortiX is moving towards that stand or kind of stable opening we've seen time and time again. The question is whether he's going to be prioritizing going for the deer pickup, because while we expect the pro scouts play a lot, some games we just don't see it at all, even when someone's got 5 or 6 of those warrior scouts.
And look at how quick that age up is coming down from LucifroN. 6 vills on top of the council hall before the 140 mark, has already pulled off of the gold as well fully. So he is all the way off the gold. He's still got some vills on the food, which makes me think he does want to end up utilizing that food for some military. If he was going for, 2 TCs, he'd already be down to 4 vills on the food and over to the stone already.
It really feels like a lot of players, when they play English in the game, they're kind of role-playing real life, right? Discard the king and just get Parliament in quick, because nobody seems to be interested in the Abbey of memes. It's kind of weird as well. A lot of people thought maybe it'd be the new way forward. You essentially got access to this knight that could heal a force on the go, but it feels like just sacrificing a 300 wood saving in the early phase of the game, removing that flexibility that you get by building Council Hall, is simply not worth it.
Yeah, and not only that, you said the 300 wood saving. Yeah. It's an additional 300 resources to get that king out as well. True. So we're talking about a 600 resource difference there. Yeah, the king can provide a lot of damage, but Mali, not usually a civilization that spreads out really far. Usually they got that pit mine that they sometimes will have 1 vill on early on, sometimes none. But usually it's that wood line, and they are under their TC with sheep, and now what we've been seeing more often, which is deer as well.
Well, another thing to consider is you're up against these warrior scouts that move quicker than the king, right? So there's always a chance you just get pinched and you lose that 300 resources. So definitely makes a lot of sense. And LucifroN, this is someone that has become quite sensible, should we say, for the English, because we see it so frequently at the moment. It's going to be the multi-TC approach.
Yeah, wanted to invest in some longbows first, though. Wanted to force some a reaction, force some pressure down, as you already see 4 longbows out on the field for LucifroN, able to, I think that's 3 shots of Vil over there, but really what it's meant to do, cause idle time, cause annoyance, but starting to pull back as he spotted the stables already almost finished on up, and knows that the longbows would not be long for this world if he kept on their main route.
No, this is just a deterrent and something to secure the TC. Because if you go blind, even though your villagers can fire upon these warrior scouts will actually tear them apart. They hit for 8 damage each. It's not your normie scout that gives them little tickling to the villages they strike.
Yeah, VortiX actually moving out with a mill on the berries, which is surprising. Usually you'll just see him drop it right next to the TC, produce up some cows, but maybe planning on taking those berries at some point. And LucifroN just playing that defensive game, has longbow station in the wood line with palings, has longbow station in his stone with palings, and just wants to get that second TC now.
So palings. This is what I'm reading there. There are quite a lot of palings. Javelin throws will make it annoying to stand your ground with that, though. The problem is it's a heavy investment. You're comparing longbows on one side that cost 90 resources. These javelins, they're an incredible unit. They do cost a notable amount more, 120 per.
He's using the longbows to save efficiency. That Vil swing timing. It is all about efficiency. I think the brothers were the ones that came up with the old English farm builds where you'd have them a little bit off-kiltered next to your town center rather than the typical box, and it was like 8 extra food over like an 8-minute period or something. But hey, that's where that 8 extra food, it's just all about these little bits of efficiencies.
Hey, it's not very health and safety though, right? Like imagine you're sitting down for a lovely lamb chop and you just like all of a sudden you bite into an arrow. I mean, it's going to ruin the whole eating experience.
Well, same thing goes for this venison that is sure to start being snagged out by LucifroN as well, dropping that second town center on the forward deer. There's also a boar in front of that. The key for VortiX, grabbing that pro scout, snagging over the other deer camp. Would have laughed and loved to see if he went over to that TC being built as it was being built on the deer and just snatched them on away before there was anything and any ability to be done by LucifroN.
The problem of that is that the English wouldn't only be eating venison tonight, they'd also be eating horse if they'd done that, right? Like, your scouts can't dive several villages and 6 longbows and not die for it. So yeah, I respect him for not just going for the all-in cheeky play, because I think it would have cost him the game.
Yeah. TC is up now, so we'll start to see that play out in the eco in just a bit. As we mentioned that, eco, VortiX getting 3 different eco techs in, specialized pick, double broadaxe, and wheelbarrow. So all those villagers going to be working a little bit harder, a little bit more efficient. But LucifroN has moved out onto the gold as well, so might be following trend in just a bit.
So stables on the way. I quite like this stables play. Like, it's been a while since we've seen English kind of pivot into it hard. We saw a little bit of that from Puppy Paw in his series versus Beastie, but I think that might have been a one stables play. This idea of just massing more horsemen than there are warrior scouts isn't terrible. You've already seen javelin, so it's justified. And we talk about this warrior scout healing that can be so useful. It's only great if there's something left to heal, right? If you can't get away from the fight because there's that many horsemen, you're still going to die.
Yeah. And English, they're all about keeping that longbow mass alive, but LucifroN not opting for those longbows because just how you said, the horsemen are about to be coming and hopefully can deny some of these scouts that are picking up more and more of these deer carcasses, bringing them back home, and will be that front line for VortiX's military after they've done that initial job.
And because he went on the deer, he can afford this. Like, typically when you make a TC deer drop like this, the English, it's 2 choices. Either a heavy investment into men-at-arms / horsemen, or you're going for fast castle. I'm glad to see that LucifroN isn't just blindly doing fast castle, because the risk you run there is you reach a point where when you reach castle, VortiX probably has 10+ javelins as well as all these scouts, and any production buildings you have, he's camping, right? So the moment something gets built, it gets killed.
Yep. Next couple deer being brought back in. Not too many left after this, and VortiX gonna have enough food over there to last him a lifetime under his town center. Especially when you think about he's gonna start dropping in some cows. Surprised he's taking the deer with all the berries with all the deer he's bringing back, but with these extra vills, maybe he's just eating it faster than he can get it.
Gotta mix your palate, all right? You're gonna get bored if you're just having deer every night. You know, give me a little bit of berries, give me a bit of bread. What else can we eat on this map? Give me some pig, actually. A little bit of pork would go a long way.
Yeah, get that nice boar. First, warrior scout getting into a predicament, but those horsemen, you could just see how fast those warrior scouts are. The horsemen were not able to chase it down. There was a little bit of, bouncing off of each other, but still couldn't close the gap, and warrior scouts just ran on away.
I like how you call it predicament, like where it start moves like, hey, you're probably wondering how I got in this situation.
Oh, it is what it is. Boar was almost A-moved, I think, by VortiX there by accident, but we see the military masses starting to push forward. We might see the first big clash of this game. VortiX had that forward pit mine, another spot that LucifroN might be able to punish and burn down those houses if VortiX can't defend this.
Man, VortiX is Obi-Wan right now. He's saying don't do it. He doesn't want him to for a selfish reason, by the way. VortiX is heading for Castle Age. He just wants to try and delay this fight. LucifroN, I'm worried he's not necessarily doing enough. If you can get to 20 horsemen before the tech up starts, maybe he can make something happen, but he's forced to clash. Horsemen will move in. Needs to get on top of the javelin throwers. If he can, the longbows can maybe be a little bit of a difference maker, but the problem is I'm just seeing so many sofas in here. just feels like LucifroN cannot access what he wants. Enough javelins are left alive that I think he will have a decent amount left in his name to still go for that castle age.
Yeah, Farimba Garrison being dropped. VortiX falling back after this. Houses and Pit Mine might be the next focus, but LucifroN not yet taking those down, and the Farimba Garrison timing will come through in just a bit. Is that triple stables coming through with it?
That would be quite a lot of stables coming through. He says, well, you have horses. It's time that I get mine in the stables and making the new babies the next years. Because, like, the problem that you have here is Sofas will beat you down with what LucifroN's got. And another problem that LucifroN has is because he didn't go for Abbey of Kings, these horsemen are now injured, right? That's never going to change. The best thing you can get out of a mass like this is what he's doing right now. I think VortiX won that fight. Even though he had to run away, he got what he wanted out of it. He shrunk the army enough that they can't threaten the main base.
And notice immediately upgrades that are coming through. Imported armor, veteran sofa, veteran warrior scouts, and ranged armor.
Problematic if you're a LucifroN fan. After what he done in round one, we kind of expect him to be stomping for everyone, but VortiX was always kind of that question mark. His bro could be his kryptonite, and VortiX very capable of running away with this game now if LucifroN cannot do more damage than just burning a few houses.
Waiting for those veteran upgrades to come through. Right as they do is right when he goes for the dive. Imported armor not yet through, but that'll just be a bonus once that comes through during this fight. And if there's going to be a fight, is LucifroN just running on a way to safety, and VortiX deciding to head on home as well. Didn't think he had enough of a mass to take it.
And he's right, he didn't. Like, VortiX is waiting on the first round of javelin throws to come out of that Farimba. If they were there, then LucifroN is running all the way back to his base. But because he postures like this, he's able to get away with this at home, setting up loose farm clusters that would otherwise be threatened by these javelins. LucifroN is looking very capable of cracking his castle age timing. And considering how small VortiX's army is, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he feels a bit more greedy than what he should be. Like, typically I'd say White Tower, but with how he's looking right now, he could even just go King's Palace for the free TC.
Yeah, and seeing that spear swap as we just rotated camera back there, that gives me just like a huge breath of fresh air for LucifroN. Makes him feel a lot safer. It wasn't just one or two spears that came out. He's already has that spear number almost to double digits, which will be a good front line for the longbows and a good ability to allow the horsemen to circle the jabs like we saw, and the spears to actually take down those sofa, as they are a super effective counter unit there. Unfortunately, no King's Palace. It is that White Tower like we saw, dropping kind of in between those two town centers and protecting up a set of farms. Loving the location, and on top of looks like the next gold vein as well, or at least to the edge of it.
I think it's because he made a full fullback, right? If he was still posturing in the mid-map and felt confident, then you can kind of get away with King's Palace. This way, even if VortiX arrives in your base before the tech up completes, he's at risk of fighting underneath a keep. And that fight will not end in his favor, even with things like imported armors.
LucifroN hits Castle Age. He will want to wait for his veteran technologies to come through as well, so just jumps inside the TC. Veteran longbows is the first choice. Doesn't quite have the gold for the rest. I kind of find this happens a lot with English. They want to be so away from gold early on in feudal until they go up to castle, and then it's like, oh wait, I need these 3 or 4 important upgrades. Whoopsies, I need these fast. And then it's like, well, you're heavy on the wood because the majority of your units are food and wood, not food and gold that you've been making.
It varies, right? If you're prioritizing knights, then they always have their gold tuned correctly. But you're right, when you go for a long feudal, everything he's built so far, it's food wood, right? Horsemen, spears, longbows especially. So it does mean VortiX has a slight edge to begin this age up. That isn't likely to last long. Still arrow coming through, tech up should follow. Looks like the longbow is now upgraded, means he's willing to tickle back at this, but that is a lot of sofas he's facing, almost 20, and remember, these lads are incredibly chunky with the imported armor as well as the blacksmith upgrades.
Yeah, those are effectively knights when you're looking at them. You know, it's kind of that hybrid knight horseman combo, but imported armor coming through, just so tanky and cannot be taken lightly. Front town center, though, proving to be an effective defense to turn VortiX back a little bit, allowing LucifroN that extra timing that he needs, as now we see those veteran technologies coming through, as well as some extra food economy.
I don't know what those straggler longbows were doing there, by the way. I think they're trying to roleplay Robin Hood for their country, but Now on this delay, LucifroN's eco should start to look a bit stronger. We do have to remember that VortiX has spread out his pit mines, right? So he's unlocked 3 that are giving him passive gold with that Faroomba build. There's maybe even a world in which he considers things like cow ranches long-term, especially if he wants to sustain this sofa growth indefinitely.
Vils moving out to build an outpost, extend that network of castles, but just walking into the military and not where you want to go. Those Vils not going to be too long for this world, but LucifroN, very edge of that network of castles, choosing to take this fight. Circle going around, spears effectively to the sofas.
He has no access. He can't get on top of all these Lombos, so they'll be able to tickle on the side. I mean, this many horsemen, the attack speed buffer, it should still be a win for VortiX. But I think he's going to end up with heavily injured sofas all the way along the battle line here.
Yeah, longbows completely sniped on out. There still was a spearman mass that was on top of those sofa. Horsemen weren't able to circle to get on top of the jabs, and spears just kind of going to be left into nowhere if VortiX can clean up these little bit of the mix, but still continuing to kite back. Those jab throwers, super high base damage, just going to attack anything and everything that they see. Doesn't matter what target they're hitting.
I do like that VortiX still keeps all the jabs alive because the jabs are dominant here. LucifroN just burnt a lot of horsemen. The problem that you have with your VortiX is your opponent is the English. They're on farms. So burning all these horsemen doesn't really change how the battles will continue to go because he has infinite food supply.
Yeah, his food supply, I mean, you can already see it in the income per minute. Tons of extra food coming in for LucifroN, and just will continue to stack up as more farms will be dropped as he has the wood to afford it, and will be able to easily mass up that horseman number. The key is that longbow number. That's the mass that you really want big. That's your DPS. That's your kind of backline. He got dropped down to nothing. He's back up to 10, but that's not really a scary longbow number when you're talking about what we typically see coming out of the English.
I think it's more importantly it's the spears that he needs. Like, spears can beat everything. Like, you know, they're cost efficient to kind of gap close on even the javelin throwers. The sofas are being massed. Like, if you look at VortiX's comp, it is javelins plus sofas. If your plan is to rely on longbows, like, this is the worst comp to go against, right? Horseman can work, but it's very pricey. Spearman is just a very cost-efficient way to approach this if LucifroN's goal is to survive. If he wants to win, Horseman is the go. But if his goal is just to stretch this game out, Spearman is just a cost-effective solution to do so.
Well, we have the Great Wall being built over on the side of VortiX. Almost has finished it up already, and that does have a market behind it, so he could start trickling in some trade in if he desires. LucifroN has the same similar idea, but not quite across the whole entire map. Just kind of wants to corner himself off a bit, as he doesn't have to expand as much being the English. Doesn't have to take as much map control. Has multiple massive gold nodes behind the walls that he's building.
He just needs to guarantee he has long-term wood access, right? That's always a risk with this map. Like, this isn't exactly a wood-dense map, so you could burn quickly. And that's why I think LucifroN, you know, usually be confident with the idea of a hyper late. We saw that in maps like Dry Arabia. But if you compare the wood on this map to Dry Arabia, I'd say it's like maybe 2/3 or half the amount you get there.
Jav starting to step up, push those horsemen right back away from the walls, and VortiX kind of feeling back in a comfortable position behind his walls, but never is something that you can sleep for too long against the English. Imperial Age, strongest positioning point, and if all of a sudden LucifroN doesn't have to continue to mass up army, then all those resources going to combine into his chain and turn into a nice old wind guard.
But VortiX has done a good job of kind of offsetting the eco disadvantage he has, right? You saw the relic there. He's already picked up 3 of them. On top of that, he has got 3 pit mines at this stage. So, like, I wouldn't discredit where his economy is at in comparison to LucifroN's. But I do like that Lucy is choosing to not just rest on his laurels, right? He understands that he needs to be kind of aggressive here. Take advantage of the mid-map. Put the screws on VortiX and don't let him just have this free opportunity to maybe go Imperial as well.
Yeah, putting down some more outposts, getting him some more vision, and expanding out that network, which he does not fight in right now until it just finishes, and that gives him that huge bonus. Can't really even tell what units are fighting what in this, but at least we know the spears are on the sofas, javelins on the backside, and horsemen just kind of helping on out.
I mean, there's just so many javelins. Like, the javelins are the problem. Like, VortiX is not really optimizing them right now. He's switching up a bit. His problem is he wasn't sniping out multiple units. But you see the longbows, like, they just can't really exist in this fight. And with the wall here, the problem that I just see is if your longbows can't exist, then it means eventually you reach this stalemate where VortiX just hides behind the wall and hurls javelins at your face.
Yeah, a couple more outposts have gone down, but the Javelin mass stays healthy. The other mass got cleared out.
Really? Wow. Okay. In fairness, it was starting to go the way of the English, but maybe a little bit premature. It feels like from VortiX's perspective, he has no ceiling behind this, right? He has nothing set up to get him in the late game, so he realizes this is just heading into English territory and says, let's just go game 5.
Yeah, just butting heads against each other, trading military mass after military mass. And I think he just realized he's not going to be able to keep the same numbers up. It's English food eco and English with map control. And English with map control is never a recipe for success if you're playing.